The AGP is a strategic partnership between the UK Government, industry and other key stakeholders. And today we're excited to be launching a refresh strategy for the AGP. Firstly, we will hear from the AGP Industry Co-Chair, Sir Michael Ryan, followed by the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State at the Department for Transport and Minister for Aviation, Robert Courts, the Director for Advanced Manufacturing at the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, Fred Perry, and the Chair of the AGP Working Group, Chris Saunders. These speeches will be followed by a panel discussion focusing on the need to transition to a net zero future and the role of the three pillars of the AGP strategy: technology and innovation, design and manufacturing value chain, and the skills required to support the next era of flight. Without further ado, may I now please welcome our first speaker onto the stage, Sir Michael Ryan.
You can hear me okay at the back there, yeah? Super, okay, so thank you, Ian. And so you'll have heard a Scottish accent, you'll hear a Northern Ireland one here, and as we talk about what we're going to be doing going forward, why it's important, particularly from a levelling up point of view, you'll understand why it's critically important that we get all of our nations engaged in what we're doing here. So great to see everybody. For an industry that is whose main function is moving people around the world and moving people sometimes very long distances, it feels amazing to be able to get together in a room and just be, you know, not even socially distanced, but a couple of feet from people and speaking face to face. And I'm sure all of you who are participating in the shows, events and meetings during the last couple of days and the next couple will realise how frankly different that is from, despite all the great technologies that have been developed in the last couple of years, nothing's the same as speaking to somebody face to face. So it's great. It'd be really hard to follow the Prime Minister yesterday, so anybody that was at that event will appreciate that after that all the speakers are going to be downhill, okay? We're going to be very informative, we're going to be very factual, we're going to be, you know, speaking to what we need to speak to, but in terms of following that, we can't do it. And for me it was all going really well when he talked about the history of the industry and the innovation, the challenges, but the opportunities as well. And then he started to talk about, you know, we've already proven that pigs can fly in the UK. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting one. And then he elaborated on the story. And it turned out that it was Frank Brabazon took a pig up to fly in 1909 in a Short Brothers aircraft. And I thought, I'll take that as a compliment, okay? You know, as much as you could in that circumstance. But so great to see everybody here, okay? Thank you, Minister Courts, for making the time to come. Fred Perry, who will be speaking to us as well. AGP members here today, industry colleagues, and all of you. Global aviation and aerospace are at a turning point. Since we came together a very long 4 years ago at the last Farnborough, we have faced a devastating impact, obviously, of the COVID-19 pandemic, not only in our sector, in our business, but the wider economy and in people's lives directly around the world. As a sector, we are committed to achieving net zero by 2050 and are fully supportive of the UK government's Jet Zero ambitions, and the Minister will be talking about those shortly. Achieving a zero carbon future, however, requires us to fundamentally rethink how we design, power, operate on the ground, and then fly aircraft in the future. And this is going to be the biggest technological challenge the sector has faced since the dawn of the jet age. But we in the aerospace industry believe we're not only equal to the challenge, but we see it as a generational opportunity for the UK to lead the world towards a jet zero world. We cannot do this alone. Achieving net zero requires us to continue to work together across industry and governments, bringing together key ecosystem partners and stakeholders, including UK academia, the high-value manufacturing catapults, regional and local bodies, including the regional aerospace alliances, and also by working together across sectors. This is the only way that we will achieve net zero and also grow the UK aerospace and the benefits that the aerospace brings to our country. This partnership method of working has always been the main strength of the Aerospace Growth Partnership. The AGP's mission is to make the UK a world leader in the development and manufacture of sustainable aircraft technologies, where globally competitive businesses, supported by a strong national ecosystem, provide high-quality jobs and growth throughout the nations and regions of the UK. So I'm delighted to announce the launch of our new strategy, Destination Net Zero, today, which sets out how UK Aerospace will work towards reducing the climate impact of aviation and secure the UK's position as a world leader for the next era of flight. We will deliver this by supporting innovation in more sustainable technologies, creating a world-leading design and manufacturing value chain, and by building the skilled workforce to support the next era of flight. Alongside accelerating investments in low and zero emissions technologies, the strategy reaffirms the need for a robust UK supply chain to industrialise those technology developments in the UK and sees the launch of a new industry-funded supplier development programme to support continuous improvements of suppliers. This new ADS-led programme is expected to deliver the equivalent of £15 million of improvement activities over the next 3 years. The programme will also help aerospace businesses measure, report, and ultimately reduce scope emissions. The strategy also sets out a plan of action to identify and deliver that skilled workforce required to support this next era of flight. This includes a skills foresighting process to identify and deliver current and future skills, a review of the sector's engagement with STEM education, and doing more to drive diversity and inclusion in the sector, building on the work of the Women in Aviation Charter. Along with further support from industry, I'm also delighted to announce that we will be continuing to support the John Dennison Bursary through 24 and 25, which is expected to support over 200 young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to pursue their interest in an aerospace engineering career. My colleague Chris Saunders will go through the detail behind each of these areas shortly, but the launch of this strategy would not have been possible without the recent commitment of the UK government to co-invest £1.37 billion with industry in research and development through the Aerospace Technology Institute through 2025. For this, we would like to thank our colleagues in government and the ministers associated with it for their continued support for our sector. So I'm once again pleased to announce the launch of our new strategy, Destination Net Zero, which I'm sure you will read with interest. This is the beginning of our journey, and we look forward to continuing to work with all of the stakeholders as we implement this strategy. I'll now call on Minister Courts to say a few words. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Michael. I'm absolutely delighted to be here at the first in-person Farnborough Airshow since 2018, I think. Clearly, hugely difficult period for the entire industry over the course of the last couple of years. Landscape of the industry clearly changed overnight, but it's great to see. And we can see it here for ourselves as we look out of the window that recovery really is underway in every single way. And we all know that aviation and aerospace more broadly are absolutely vital for the economy, for trade and for investment as well. It directly provides jobs to approximately 230,000 people before COVID across all regions of the UK. It ensures that the people of this country can visit family and friends abroad and take much-deserved holidays as well. It underpins our competitiveness and the global reach of our national and our regional economies. But the UK's also been a leading aerospace sector, and since 2013, the government has committed to working through the Aerospace Growth Partnership to ensure its long-term success. But clearly, of course, we cannot ignore the threat and the challenge of climate change. With current emissions from the sector, aviation is expected to become one of the largest emitting industries by 2050. Therefore, we must transform aviation and break the link between air travel and rising global temperatures. And the AGP's Destination Net Zero strategy is a major step towards this common goal, complementing the government's wider Jet Zero strategy, which is also published today. In the Jet Zero strategy, we set out policies that we are confident demonstrate our commitment to tackling climate change and delivering Jet Zero, whilst maintaining the benefits that air travel brings to us all. The trajectory in our strategy sees emissions never again reaching the levels of 2019. Meaning, and if we deliver this, will mean that we have peak aviation in the past. It's an incredible milestone to think that will be a moment that lies in history. Our Jet Zero strategy sets out ambitious targets, including for UK domestic aviation to reach net zero by 2040. And our policy spans 6 measures: system efficiencies, sustainable aviation fuels, zero-emission flight, markets and removals, influencing consumers, and addressing non-CO2, all of which we will need all members of the aerospace industry gathered here today to help us deliver. The AGP strategy is a great indicator of the commitment of the aerospace sector to work together into achieving Jet Zero. The joint industry-government commitment to co-invest, as we've heard, at least £1.37 billion in R&D to 2025, will be key to achieving our ambitions to develop sustainable aircraft technology here in the UK. This will not only help make conventional aircraft more efficient and able to run on increasing supplies of sustainable aviation fuel, but also contribute towards the aim of zero-emissions aircraft becoming commercially available. But it's not only the technology itself that needs developing. We also need to ensure we have competitive supply chains and the skills to make these technologies a commercial reality. And the AGP's commitments, including the new industry-led supplier development programme and the creation of 25,000 new apprenticeship starts to 2030, will be another vital piece of the transition to net zero aviation. Now, it's been an absolute pleasure for me to see this strategy develop over the last year that I've been invited to sit on the AGP board, alongside our wider Jet Zero strategy. The only way to ensure success is to continue to cooperate together on these issues through forums like the AGP and the Jet Zero Council and its delivery groups. Now, I'm really looking forward now, as we all look to the future, to seeing the delivery of these strategies, utilising the sector's enormous capacity to develop and to embrace change and innovation while keeping passengers flying and all the time reducing emissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Michael, and thank you, Minister Courts. I'm Fred Perry. I'm the Director of Advanced Manufacturing at BEIS, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the sort of official substitute for a BEIS Minister, I'm afraid, with you today to speak a little bit about the BEIS perspective, the Business and Energy Department, on the Aerospace Growth Partnership and the refresh of the strategy today. So I wanted to touch briefly on 5 themes that I think run through the strategy and indeed the discussions we had earlier today at the Jet Zero Council. So the first is a joint venture. Now, I know that my Secretary of State, Kwasi Kwarteng, thinks that there's no way you deliver net zero without doing it with industry and people. He thinks that across all sectors and certainly across aerospace. And it's why this setup that we've got with the Aerospace Growth Partnership is so vital to delivering hand in hand with the people in this room and ensuring that we set commitments that ultimately are stretching but deliverable, and we all go on that journey together. So in particular, thanks to people like Kevin Craven, who've been absolutely pivotal in setting up our supplier development programme that Sir Michael announced in his kind of remarks earlier today. It's only through contributions from industry like that that the overall strategy is going to be a success, and we're going to deliver against those ambitious goals. So the second theme is global leadership. And again, I know my ministers are really keen that in terms of the commitments we're setting out, that we're one of the pioneers kind of internationally in terms of the aerospace industry. And we've come a really long way on that journey. At COP26, we made several commitments. As a result of the Carbon Budget 6, we included international aviation emissions into our net zero targets, and we've embedded it really as kind of a fundamental part of what government is seeking to achieve. And I think both the AGP strategy refresh and the Jet Zero strategy that come today hand in hand really put the UK in that leadership position globally, and especially ahead of ICAO later on in September, where we'll be encouraging other countries and member states to make their own commitments. I think it's a really important step we've made today and at Farnborough on that journey. So third, I was going to talk about the green economy as well. And certainly from a BEIS perspective, everything we do on net zero is about delivering jobs and investment across the country. And in terms of some of the stats, Minister Courts already outlined, what a massive contribution it makes, those 230,000 jobs. And the one stat that, my team always tell me is that almost 90% of those are outside London and the South East, which is, a terrific kind of contribution towards levelling up. And we must continue that in terms of innovation and ensuring that this industry remains at the forefront of global competition. So fourth, I was going to mention skills. And obviously there's a huge amount of the strategy today that kind of focuses on skills and what we need to do to train our people and the next generation to be able to deliver the industrial development that we need to make this a reality. I had the privilege just on the trip we're on now of speaking to 5 apprentices who've been working in the industry for a few years. And I mean, some of the things they were feeding back were, absolutely amazing in terms of the skills they've developed and, their rotations and the different kind of exposure they get to different parts of the production chain. But even on top of that, they were talking about different ways of modular learning. And thinking about how they get other skill sets, and in future we might think about skills in a different way. And I think one of the comments that came up was, could they learn anything from the auto industry and the hydrogen development that is going on over there and in that industry too? And certainly for my role looking across some of these industrial sectors across BEIS, I think that's something I'm taking away from today, is whether we can think about skills in a more holistic way so that the training of our people takes advantage of the different technological developments we have in different industries. The final thing I wanted to touch on was measurement and delivery. This came up at the Jet Zero Council. We always publish strategies in government, and it's our responsibility as well to continue tracking them and to ensure we deliver against them. So I think there's a core role for my department. I know that my team produces some of the aviation emissions statistics that are published by government, in ensuring that, 2019 remains the peak year in terms of aviation emissions, as the Minister said, and that, we're also feeding back between each other. There's no use us setting these ambitious trajectories if we don't get the feedback from industry as well about how operationally, they can deliver, this room can deliver against, that ambitious target. So those were some of the themes I wanted to mention today, which I hope, Kwasi, if he were here, would have outlined in sort of the same vein. But I think at the sort of fundamental level, what these 2 strategies today set out is not only global leadership, but an ambition for a green economy. Thank you.
Everyone always looks worried when someone picks up a clicker. I promise you there aren't too many PowerPoint slides. Firstly, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and taking time out of what is always a very hectic air show and cramming yourself in what is an increasingly warm room. So I'll keep this to the point. Firstly, thank you very much to Sir Michael and to Fred and to the Minister as well, particularly Minister Courts. Thank you For those of you who know, the Minister chaired the Jet Zero Council this morning, and later on today, he, along with the Secretary of State for Transport, will launch the Jet Zero Strategy. What you're going to see here is very much in lockstep with it. This is how the aerospace industry and how the manufacturers fit in to that strategy. And I think this is a really good example of joined-up government. And that's really important because actually, if we don't have that, we're not going to achieve the aims of the UK government and of the industry as a whole. So before we move to the panel session, I'm just going to take you a few minutes to talk you through some of those details of this strategy. You'll see in tune with sustainability, not fully printed documents. There is a QR code if you want to download the full document, which I recommend. I won't hold it against you if you start holding your phones up now. But while you do that, I think it's worth just going back to first principles. So aviation is a force for good. It connects people, it connects places, and it connects trade. I think it's one of the few places where you can say this where that won't be disputed, but I think it is really important to remember. And it's also worth remembering that since the dawn of flight, the UK has been a world leader in aerospace. We innovated to usher in the jet age, we pioneered supersonic flight, and today technology based in the UK underpins many of the world's most advanced military and civil aircraft. And when the AGP was formed over a decade ago, its mission was simple, to support and to grow the positions we already had and to grow that strength of the UK. We would leverage our core skills in large passenger aircraft, wings, engines, aerostructures, and advanced systems, as well as investing in the competitiveness of our supply chain and the skills required to secure the next generation of aerospace. This approach remains as important today as it was back at the start of the last decade, but we also have to recognise that the world has changed. As it's already been mentioned, the last 2 years have seen our industry profoundly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and actually it's very pleasing and reassuring to see how well this show has bounced back, but yet we also have to be realistic, which is that the industry will not fully recover for years to come. More fundamentally, though, it's the threat of climate change. Aviation is a significant and growing emitter of greenhouse gases. We can't simply ignore the impact our industry has on climate. Our customers, our government, our society is not going to stand for it. And actually, we don't stand for it ourselves. And I think you can see that by just walking around the show and seeing the amount of commitments which are being made on making our industry more sustainable. But it's for that reason that we at the AGP, and I think across government and in industry, see ourselves that we're actually at the start of the next era of flight. This is an era where we ensure that aircraft are not only safe, not only reliable and convenient, but they're also truly sustainable as well. And so with that reason, we led to what is a renewed mission for the AGP, to make the UK a world leader in the development and manufacture of the most sustainable aircraft technologies, where globally competitive businesses, supported by a strong national ecosystem, provide high-quality jobs and growth throughout the UK. Now, that may be a bit of a mouthful, but that's actually what we're trying to achieve here. And let's start to unpack what that means. So the strategy we're setting out today is a comprehensive and credible plan for how we take those next steps to achieve that mission. Firstly, sustainable technology, supporting innovation to make our industry truly sustainable. Secondly, world-class manufacturing to ensure we're globally competitive. And thirdly, building the skills for the future, as it's people that underpin everything that we do. So turning to sustainable technology. The ATI has played a key role in ensuring the UK remains a highly attractive location for aerospace innovation, and it has a track record of helping companies collaborate and convert R&D programs into new work in the UK. Along with the AGP, the ATI has recently renewed its strategy and prioritises technologies for ultra-efficient aircraft, zero-carbon emissions aircraft, as well as cross-cutting enabling technologies and infrastructure. We know that these will be vital in achieving our 2050 net zero goal. At the spending review last year, the government announced the continuation of the ATI until 2031 with a new funding settlement for the next 3 years. This has enabled the industry and government to commit 1.37 billion in R&D spending up to 2025, with at least an additional 20 billion of private investment between now and 2040 as we take these technologies and we industrialise them. We know that transitioning into a net zero future, collaboration will be vital, and speed is of the essence, not only to meet our targets, but also to remain globally competitive. We will therefore set up the Strategic Aerospace Research Forum, building on the Aerospace Research Consortium, UK ARC. The forum will bring together companies, universities, catapult centres, as well as government departments, agencies, and funding bodies. In doing so, the aim of the SARF will be to optimise R&D investments, align access to funding, benefit from cross-sectoral knowledge, drive thought leadership, and increase the speed of innovation to production. Finally, with the continuation of the Future Flight Challenge, 300 million of government and industry funding is being invested to help build the advanced air mobility market. By advancing electric and autonomous flight, we have the opportunity to increase mobility and reduce congestion using zero emissions aircraft. But to convert great innovation into production, we need a world-class manufacturing value chain. This means suppliers and customers working together to deliver globally competitive production. To aid this, our strategy announces the launch of a new industry-led supplier development program to support continuous improvement called Supply Chain Solutions. Tomorrow morning, we'll be going into more detail about the setup and delivery of this program, but we expect to deliver the equivalent of at least £15 million worth of improvement activities over the next 3 years. It's not enough, however, for our supply chain to be globally competitive. They also must be sustainable. So as part of the Supply Chain Solution Programme, a new Sustainability Solutions Programme will be set up to help SMEs measure, report, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This will focus on Scope 1 emissions, those created on site, and Scope 2 emissions, those created from the power that we consume. Understanding and reporting greenhouse gas emissions throughout the supply chain is critical for understanding the full life cycle impact of the products we make, as well as providing a benchmark to take action to reduce emissions. And we also know that investors increasingly demand this. Finally, we want to ensure the benefits of the aerospace sector are felt across the nations and regions of the UK. Clusters of expertise in different parts of the country already makes our industry stronger, and this is something which we want to build on. The AGP will therefore work together with the governments of the UK and the regional aerospace alliances to exploit our place-based capabilities and to develop and grow investments in new skills and technologies aligned to things like zero emissions market as well as the advanced air mobility market. But none of this matters unless we have the right skills. We can't be competitive unless we have a world-beating workforce. The future success of the UK aerospace sector is directly linked to ensuring our current and future employees have the necessary skills to innovate and grow the competitiveness of their companies. Working with industry, government and academia, the AGP is evaluating the skills necessary for the future workforce. There are several areas of significant opportunity, such as automation, electric and hydrogen propulsion, as well as autonomy. But as a next step, the AGP will work with all stakeholders to help inform the training and standards that we required to equip our future workforce to make these things a reality. As the Minister said, and as Fred said, apprenticeships are a proven method for delivering the skilled workforce we need. As aerospace recovers from the impact of the pandemic, the sector is committed to delivering 25,000 apprenticeship starts by 2030, so as many people as possible can benefit from the opportunities they provide. And finally, we want to support and deliver STEM skills to open up the opportunities of engineering to as many people as possible. The companies that make up the AGP will continue to work with schools and community partnerships to develop STEM skills, which offer a pathway into aerospace, focusing on the underrepresented groups and less economically developed areas. This will include the continuation of the John Dennison programme. This is a programme which is particularly dear to the heart of Deakin Aerospace, my company, as John Dennison is a late colleague of ours who did so much for the sector and for young people. Over the last 5 years, he has already helped over 100 students into higher education, and with further funding over the next 3 years, we know it will be many more. I've only touched on the surface of what's actually in this strategy, and throughout your busy weekend and a few days after, I do strongly suggest that you look in the document in greater detail because it is a thorough plan. But as I said at the start, we're entering a new era of flight. This presents challenges, but it also presents opportunities. Within the UK, we have the ability to be global leaders once more, and we can do that for decades to come. Through the plans we've set out, and with the continued collaboration between government and industry, we know that we can grow our sector, delivering 25,000 apprenticeship starts by 2030, growing our workforce to 120,000 by 2035 and 135,000 by 2050, and growing our share of the global aerospace market from 13% to 18%. This in total will add over £500 billion to our economy between now and the middle of the century. But crucially, we will do this while decarbonising our sector. We will abate 125 million tonnes of global CO2 over the next 30 years and make sure that we meet the UK's target to be net zero by 2050. I genuinely think we are at a crossroads, but by taking the right decisions now, we will deliver an industry that benefits our whole country well into the future and one which we can be rightly proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to Sir Michael, Minister Courts and Fred as well. I would now like to invite our panellists onto the stage. The panel will be moderated by Catherine Bennett. Catherine is the Chief Executive of the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. And if you could please come up onto the stage. Yep, thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. It is a bit warm in here, but it's nice to have good weather. And as the Minister said, wonderful to look out of the window and see all the aircraft out there. I just want to say a bit of a thank you, first of all. First of all, I want to thank Michael for taking on the chairmanship of the AGP. You've got a busy job, Michael, and you invest your time in it. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Chris Saunders as well, leading the strategy, and I know it's quite a job pulling these things together with Balaji's support. Balaji, you're rushing around at the back of the room, but you're key in this, and also I want to pay tribute to Katie Roscoe for leading the communications and engagement work for the AGP. A quick introduction to my wonderful panel here. You can see the names above you. So first of all, here to my left is Maya, who actually I'm very honoured is part of my team at the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. We have Oriel Petri as well, who's got the best job in aerospace, and don't I know it, Senior Vice President, Head of Public Affairs for Airbus in the UK. Then we have John Irwin, who's celebrating 50 years of Denroy. Not you physically, but a great achievement. Oh, Fred, I thought you were going to be up there. Maybe you're not. You're going to make a few comments. And, of course, Gary Elliott, CEO of the ATI. Gary was telling me yesterday he's been in the post for 8 years, so you've seen quite a lot of activity in your area. It's wonderful to be here, and absolutely, as Chris said, take a few minutes to have a look at this document, Destination Net Zero. Even the summary is worth reviewing if you can over the next few days. I saw the headline. I'm sure many of you have picked up the documents when you got off the train or whatever. Today, Flight Daily News this morning, and it talked all about this is the moment to connect the aviation ecosystem, and the moment is now. And who's better placed to do that than the Aerospace Growth Partnership? I remember it was launched at Farnborough in July 2012. That was quite a year for this country, if you remember, the London Olympics. So let's hope all our flames are burning bright. As Ewan just said, I have the honour of being the CEO of the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. We're supported by Innovate UK and, of course, through Fred's department. And I'm proud to say that aerospace is the largest part of the work that we do across the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. Wing of Tomorrow for Airbus, a particular partner. We have the Boeing Centre at AMRC in Sheffield, and strong partnerships, of course, with Rolls-Royce at the National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland at Strathclyde, and, of course, the Manufacturing Technology Centre at Coventry. So quite a portfolio. And actually, Fred, you'd be interested to know that we're the 4th largest training provider of apprentices, and we work across all manufacturing sectors, so look forward to chatting to you about that. But anyway, let's turn to my panel. I'm going to first ask John. Obviously, Michael mentioned the levelling up agenda, and the regional impact of aerospace is absolutely key, but really I'd be interested to hear from you about the announcement that we talked about in terms of the supply chain initiatives that's being launched this week. Would you like to comment on that, please, John?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, the Northern Ireland aerospace cluster is very strong and has grown over the last number of years. We, in the Partnering for Growth, set ourselves fairly high standards, and up until the pandemic, we were well on track to achieving those. Also, if I reflect on the supply chain solution, which is now sort of in place through this growth partnership strategy, Northern Ireland has been very much involved in the predecessor, if you want to call it that, the SC21, and has performed very well in UK terms. So I think there's a real commitment and engagement with the Northern Ireland SME community to contributing to the benefit of UK aerospace.
And the other big thing, of course, is skills. I literally was on the bus this morning with a gentleman from a defence company who said he's struggling to get the right people, the talent. How are you finding that in terms of being an SME?
Yeah, I think there isn't anyone who can't say that there is that difficulty. Retention, inclusivity, diversity, all of those are absolutely key. But attracting the right people as well. And getting the right quality of people, because there is a lot of inflationary salaries that don't necessarily reflect quality. So what we need to do is and this strategy is going to contribute considerably to that by putting out the message that the aerospace sector is an attractive sector to all types of people, young people. That will help us recruit people, and it's up to us then to develop the careers and keep those people trained, educated, and up to the requirements that we have as a company.
Thanks very much. I'm now going to turn to Oriel. Oriel, you've been in post 7 months now. Be interested in your initial impressions of joining this fantastic industry.
Thank you. It was 6 months actually, as the red arrows flew over my head on Sunday, that I moved into this industry. And my first impressions are that I'm, as you say, quite lucky. Quite lucky because of the clarity of mission. I mean, I think you hear that very clearly from every speaker today. We want to have sustainable aviation, as has been said. I still want to see my brother in Tokyo. I imagine you want to see family members across the globe. And we also still want to go on holiday at the same time, actually with the extra heat of this screen blaring behind us. Clearly, it is absolutely critical that we find a way of doing that sustainably so that my 6-year-old, by the time he gets to my age, can still fly around. So the clarity of mission is amazing. And coming into Airbus with that clarity of mission and, let's be honest, ambition, though it is the best job in aerospace because my colleagues over here are actually leading the technology, both on the wing of tomorrow and on fuel systems, and I just need to kind of talk about it. So the ambition, the clarity of mission and where we want to get to, zero-E aircraft, but on the way, 100% SAF, sustainable aviation fueled accredited flight, and of course efficiencies that we're driving year on year with every new product, and where we've got to 20% by now. So that mission, that clarity, that ambition, that's the sort of stuff that excites me. And I suppose for those of you that don't know, what I did before my 6 months under the red arrows was 20 years working for the British government here and overseas on economic development. Worked closely with Fred in the past, in fact. And I think the other excitement is just how brilliantly this industry has come together with government over, as you said, Catherine, many years to drive this innovation. And we can only do it if we do it together. And I think, and have always said, for those of you who knew me in Whitehall, this is still not a model that is replicated enough across the economy or across government. So those are some of the things that are exciting. Apprentices are just, I mean, beyond exciting. They're a bit intimidating because they're just so articulate. And the apprentice that I introduced to our current Prime Minister yesterday managed to mention levelling up to the Prime Minister, which had not been briefed by anybody. But I mean, you know, they are just such a beacon of hope. And for somebody like me who did very little maths or physics or chemistry, again, give me the hope that we can scale the challenge. And supply chain, I'm sure we'll get onto in a minute. But yeah, you can. I hope my excitement is palpable.
My best technique is always finding engineers who can explain things to me very simply and then know who to ask. Thank you very much, Oriel. I know you've just hosted the Jet Zero Council at the Airbus Pavilion. So big focus on sustainability. Airbus making some big announcements this week. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I mean, yesterday I asked my boss whether he thought that I could stay after my 6 months and whether my probation was passed. I actually think getting the Jet Zero Council with the Minister here in front of Airbus, the whole of the Jet Zero Council, that's industry across the board, the airlines, but also the people that are going to drive the infrastructure, is critical, of course. That's the other bit of the journey. It's not just about the innovation, it's about us kind of working together to kind of get it. So yeah, I mean, Jet Zero and the AGP together, that's what today is about. You know, they're sort of two sides of the same coin, aren't they? And so it was a huge privilege that Julie, our member on the Jet Zero Council, was able to host the Minister and everybody else there today, just to really underline how committed this still one of a global duopoly is to sustainable aviation. But actually, in fact, also that Martin Donnelly, also a former colleague of mine from Boeing, was also in the room, just as a measure of just how this goes beyond, party politics. It goes beyond global duopolies who are in competition when it comes to jet zero, net zero. We are all one.
Thank you. So I'd now like to turn to Maya. Chris and Michael talked a lot about the future talent, the big objectives we had. Fred talked about apprentices that he'd met. So far you've dedicated your life to aviation. I'm terribly proud you're working in my organisation. I wondered if you could just tell us, just briefly, a little bit about your life so far and your ambitions.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. And, can you hear me? Is that working? Okay, good. And I just want to thank to the AGP for bringing me here. I feel definitely very honoured and excited to be part of a room of people that make decisions, especially in a sector that is very close to my heart. So hearing about everyone speaking today, I could call myself that I come from a sort of disadvantaged background. My family and I moved to the UK in 2015 as refugees from Syria, so it was definitely not the easy, straight road. Engineering was nothing that was ever in sight for me, especially aerospace. It was not something that I wanted. But it turned out in a funny way. I got rejected from school so many times, and I was told, I could not do it because I could not speak English. So I turned into physics and maths, and I was like, you know what, engineering could save me. Luckily it did. In a way, when I went and applied to a college and I spoke to to a teacher there on an open day, I remember I told him, I have nothing to do, I just want to study, can you please give me a space, kind of thing. And I did not think about the attraction, because I was a woman in an engineering college, of how much they found that as a great hot piece, like, we want to grab that, which they did, and it turned out well. My interest in aviation and aerospace came after I spent a couple of years. I got, my feet in the grad of engineering, and I saw Heathrow, how big it is. And there was like the bill about having this extra runway, and like how people were fighting about it. And personally, I wanted an extra runway just because it's cool, but understand the sustainability and everything.
I think Heathrow have just left the room, actually. They would be sad to have missed that.
Yeah, big for Heathrow. But as attracting as it is to get people into the aerospace studying wise, because I did end up going to university and I did aviation engineering, and bursaries like the John Donson bursaries are very good because they make this sector is very attractive. But then when we talk about next steps, the ambitions in having those 25,000 apprentices by 2030 is very good. But then how do we also target the other young people, graduates and people who are interns? I found it extremely difficult to get an internship or to get a job. Thanks to Catherine, who we got connected, that happened last year, and I was more than happy that I am part of the industry. But it's extremely competitive. As graduates, as students, I'm still in touch with my friends who would love a job to develop their skills and to work more and to have their actual input into the aerospace industry. Yet it's so difficult to go through that. It's so difficult to find that open door that gets you in. So what are we kind of doing in developing that? How are we opening the door? How are we allowing those people that don't come from top universities and come with the top grades, how are we telling them that you're also included? Because what I heard in the room today, that we want everyone to work in this. We need everyone to cooperate in order to make the change that we need. So how are we having this inclusion? I'm very proud to be part of the HVMC family and to have launched the Inclusion and Diversity Charter recently. That also made me feel that we're not talking inclusion just about students. We're talking about diverse backgrounds, minority backgrounds, and having women in STEM as well. That's all some of the very important things. So that's my experience, dedicated for aviation. Love it, it's great. Love the sustainability and the emission part of it. And given my background as a pilot, I know that people just look at me and be like, you're burning the world. So I'd love to see how we, as people who can make those changes, can stop this assumption that aviation is the sector burning the world.
Thank you, Maya. And Maya, we're very proud. She's actually got onto the graduate scheme for the Manufacturing Technology Centre in Coventry, so working with Rolls-Royce, etc. So good luck to you. So I'm now going to pass to Gary, who is definitely the most popular man in aerospace at the moment. I don't know the exact figures, but I hear ATI has been massively oversubscribed, so you're on top of everyone's address book, Gary. I wondered if I could ask you a bit about SAF. There's been an important announcements this week. I saw Boeing made an announcement about some more investment in the UK at Sheffield University. And of course, we've talked a lot about hydrogen, big debate. And I understand ATI have recently done a study with Airports Council International. I just wondered if you wanted to give your perspective on SAF and the opportunities there in light of our destination net zero strategy. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, no problem. Does this work? Yep. Difficult to tell. I'm currently experiencing 41 degrees Celsius just up here. You would not believe the heat. So we're already breaking the records up here. But yeah, no, thank you, Catherine. And I'm going to struggle to outdo Maya or the Prime Minister indeed, but I'll give it a go, particularly on the dry subject of sustainable aviation fuel, albeit important. But I think Chris mentioned earlier, clearly for our sector to decarbonise, we have ultra-efficient technologies, but we also have zero-emission technologies, and then lots of cross-cutting technologies. The ultra-efficient technologies is really about the use of SAF and improvements to the aircraft in things like aerodynamics and manufacturing improvements, etc. And clearly the introduction of SAF into the aircraft will have a great effect on reducing carbon emissions. And the paper that we recently launched that you can download from the website, and I would encourage you to do so, it's a bit of a difficult read because it's very technical, so you may have to read it like I did several times, but I would encourage you to read it because it is very informative for those of you who are not experts on it. So what it really shows is, certainly for the near to medium term, SAF is probably the solution to improving the environmental position across aviation. Hopefully in the longer term we can get to genuine zero emissions through things like liquid hydrogen, etc. But certainly for the near term, that's the challenge. What the paper really highlights is that we need to increase the blend and obviously the scale up of the SAF itself. And later today, from the Jet Zero Council, the Minister will announce some interesting targets around that, which I think are inspiring and also pushing the UK to take some leadership. So I think there's lots to do. One of the things that's really encouraging about, we've talked about collaboration through the AGP, is I think Jet Zero, AGP, and all the colleagues and stakeholders in the room, there's more collaboration than I've ever seen before, and that is essential to this challenge. It's not just an aerospace challenge, it's an aviation challenge, it's a fuel production challenge, infrastructure at airports, etc. So there's a lot to do, and what I see is a lot of positive momentum behind that when it comes to SAF. And my good friend Jonathan Consul is somewhere in the room who leads the SAF delivery group for Jet Zero. So fully behind that, and I think exciting times ahead.
Thanks, Gary. I mean, Fred and Oriel have both talked about the international dimension, and I do remember when ATI was first announced, it really put our country on the map in terms of the fact that we have this very serious institute with very serious support in it. And let's remember, as you said, Fred, it's a joint investment. Gary, do you have any comments to make? I know we've not been able to travel that much in the last couple of years, but in terms of how we stack up in terms of international collaboration, I know you do a lot of outreach overseas.
Yeah, no, I think, it's a collaborative sector. It's just in our blood, right? So we're all keen to do that. And as I've been joking with some of my American cousins recently, even the great United States can't solve this. It has to be a collaborative effort internationally. And of course, aircraft that fly have a destination, and you need the fuel at the other side as much as you need the fuel then when you take off. So I think it is a big challenge. We could do more. Certainly from the ATI perspective, we're trying to do as much as we can. Clearly, dare I say, use the phrase, but post-Brexit, there's probably some more opportunity and certainly some encouragement to do so. So we've started to embark on that journey. Obviously, we need the support of all the stakeholders in the room. But like I say, I think there's a lot to do. I think the UK is very good at it, and the ecosystem that we have, again, represented in the room is very strong. I think the UK does punch above its weight in terms of its capabilities. It's a question of how do we drive that leadership position that the Minister talked about earlier.
And I encourage everyone to go and see Gary's stand. I can't remember the number, sorry. It's so many stands here, Kevin. Well done.
Yeah.
To
It's in Hall
Farnborough.
4, which is the
Go
hottest.
and see ATI. Yeah, go and see ATI. Thank you. John, I know there's going to be more discussion tomorrow about the supply chain work, and I heard Chris say earlier, obviously the big thing on the supply chain initiative is the sustainability angles and the scope emissions measurement. How do you think the supply chain are going to cope with that? Are they up for it?
I think so. I don't think you have to even be in the aerospace sector to be dealing with that at the moment. ADS have been very helpful in guiding SMEs in terms of how to measure those scopes and how to put together ESG policies. And I'm involved in a number of different areas, even outside aerospace as well, and everyone is refreshing strategies and everyone has the same items on the agenda. So I think, yes, absolutely, they're up for it through necessity, but also through the ethical obligation as well.
Okay, wonderful. Right, I'm now going to turn to the room. I think we've got some microphones available. Are there any questions for our panellists or anybody who's spoken this morning? Come on, don't be shy. Paul Everett. Welcome.
Hi. Gary, I just wondered if it might be helpful because people will be interested, I'm sure, in the level of funding, but some of the criteria that you have in, it's going to be a competitive process to access the funding.
Yeah.
So outlining some of the criteria that are going to be important.
Yeah, no. Well, obviously, there's as many you will experience. There's a very robust process of assessment when it comes to projects, and many of you will have been sick of me saying this for the last few years. But there's certainly more demand than available funding, which is a good place. But it does mean we will have to turn down very good projects. The criteria are pretty simple, really. There's a technology strategy which outlines the opportunities, and it's a market-led strategy. So it has been developed in collaboration with many in the room and beyond. So it's not just an ATI document, it's a collaborative document. So we use that along with economic measurements and value for money criteria from our friends in BEIS. And through that process, we score each individual project, and the best projects against that score win. So it's fairly demanding, but I think also I would encourage for those who have not used it before, it's about collaboration again. So I've been probably repeating myself numerously this week already and telling people don't go and write lots of documents and lots of applications. Come talk to us and we'll help you with that process. So it's very much collaborative. We're here to help, not to trip people up.
Thanks, Gary. Next question, Professor Helen Atkinson from Cranfield.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I was just reflecting. I chair This is Engineering for the Royal Academy of Engineering, which is a huge social media campaign to encourage more young people to consider engineering as a career. But I was reflecting on, first of all, your comments about salaries and your own reflection about whether they're commensurate with quality. Then I was reflecting on your comments about how difficult it is if you come from certain institutions to find your way into the industry. Then in the strategy, we've got a huge emphasis on apprenticeships. So I sort of observe a bit of a disconnect going on somewhere here. And I've also wanted to actually ask the panel about the higher level, what I call specialist skills, more specialist capacity. Because for Cranfield, what we observe is many other countries putting huge investment into specialist skills, sending people to us for us to educate them, and yet the UK actually has a lack of strategy around its specialist skills end. So something about what's the disconnect going on, and then something about specialist skills.
Thank you, Helen. Would anyone like to tackle that one, or I might give it to Chris Saunders? We don't have the skills working group chair with us, don't think. Do we? Oh, we do. Do apologise. Welcome. Do you want to say who you are? Sorry, stand up.
Is it on?
Yeah.
My name's John England. I wasn't expected to speak this morning, but there you go. I think it's an interesting observation about the disconnection. And I think whilst we've been working through some of the skill sets and some of the information that we've been gathering along that journey, it is to try and get more, not only apprentices, but further education and higher education. I think when you look at the types of skills that we believe we might need in future, we're just going through that process now to understand how do we get from a lovely topic like hydrogen, and how do we drill down then to get to what might be some specialist skills that we will need to generate more and more learning packets on that specialist skill. So I think we've got a work plan that gets us to that level of granularity. I don't think we're there yet, but the strategy helps us get to that. But interest in the disconnect, I think there are lots and lots of apprentices. One of the panels on Thursday morning, we've got some apprentices on that panel. So it's interesting, Maya's experience is slightly different. So
Thank you. Just got a couple more minutes. Have we got any other? Maya.
Yeah, sorry. Just to add quickly, I come from a further education background, so I'm graduating aviation engineering from Brunel University, and Brunel, I don't think is a bad university. I think it's all right. So like they do the job, and as people, as students, we look at apprentice and we think they're way more advantaged than us because they've been grabbed from young ages, taught right on experience, and not just taught and also been paid to do that, while we graduate university with so much debt, yet hard opportunities just to go into engineering, like the lengths that so many of my friends had to go through just to end up in an engineering company, just by jumping from one sector to the other to grab just a little bit of experience, just so they can, go and do the things that they love. It's not about salaries, it's never been the first instant, oh, that's a low-paying job, I'm not going to apply for it. We always just apply for whatever suits an engineer best, and then that's where the struggle.
Thank you. We've got a bit of a ping-pong going here. I think John wants to...
Only to say, really interesting, when you talk to some of the young apprentices, they almost feel that they're not as well off as the graduates because they've come through and they've had to work as well as getting some of that learning and experience. So there's probably some communication in there as well, so that we understand what we're trying to get from both groups, because you need the apprentices for practical and traditional skills, whilst you need the graduates that come in and do the higher education and the more specialist and the higher level technology things. So there's probably some comms that we need to do as well.
Okay, one final question from Paul McKinley. I couldn't ignore him. And then we'll finish because I know it's hot in here.
Yeah, thanks, Jerome. Paul McKinley from Airbus. I'd probably just like to point out that apprenticeships is not just about production and hand skills. In Airbus we've got hundreds of degree apprentices, engineers, logistics, business management, just a few examples. So I think we need to think about apprenticeships in a wider context than just the production and manufacturing skills.
Thank you. So before everyone wilts in front of this screen here, I just want to say thank you so much for the panellists for putting your time into this, and thank you for putting this together.
I'll just say thanks. Thank you, everybody, for coming. There are some teas and coffees at the back for some of you who want to cool off. There is some water as well. Please feel free to grab some bottles on your way out. Thank you so much. And then thank you to Catherine Bennett for hosting what was a fantastic panel discussion. I think gives us an opportunity to set the chairs in a bit forward for the next session.